Welcome to the jungle, bitch. I'm sitting here. It's 2:20 New York time on a Friday. Donald J. Trump was just sworn in as the new President of the United States of America. So I was live tweeting it all this morning. You should check out my Twitter feed if you haven't, because it is hilarious. No, seriously, I think I knocked it out of the park with my tweets. It is a sad day for America with Donald Trump being sworn in. Not that I'd be happy if it was Hillary Clinton being sworn in, but it was kind of a lose-lose, and I feel like we may have lost even bigger. So it's a sad day. I'm sitting here wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt, looking like one should look on the day when Donald Trump is sworn in. But I wanted to do something a little different and a little special for everybody today. Recently, we took the I Side With political quiz, and basically what that did is it told you who you should vote for in the general election. So asked you a bunch of questions, and then it told you match up X percent with Hillary, X percent with Donald Trump, X percent with Gary Johnson and Jill Stein. So I took that for you last time. Got a lot of views, and I like doing these things because you can go into a lot of detail about what you believe and what you think, and it's good for clarity's sake. But this is the general political ideology test. It's politicalcompass.org, and it's actually politicalcompass.org-test. So if you guys want to take it, you could take it too. I'm going to go through all these questions in excruciating detail. And I'm going to warn you in advance, if you're not a gigantic Secular Talk fan, don't even bother, motherfucker. Don't even bother. Because basically what's going to happen is I will talk until my bladder can no longer take it, and I either pee on myself and keep talking, or I go take care of that situation and remedy it. So, without further ado, let's get started here. I'm going to answer all these questions, and then you'll see exactly where yours truly falls on the spectrum. So, here we go. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. Well, obviously, I strongly agree with that. It's ridiculous. It's even a question. Like, who would disagree with that? Like, just a bunch of mega rich CEOs who are like, I disagree. I'd rather it serve transnational corporations and not the people. By the way, transnational is a weird term. Like, multinational is something that I've said and something that I've read other people say. Transnational, it almost makes me think of like a transgender corporation. Which is a bizarre thought. Okay, I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Well, no, you're supposed to call out your country when it's wrong. So strongly disagree. In fact, I think that's more patriotic. There's the old quote, like 8,000 people said it before me, but dissent is the highest form of patriotism. Because when your country's doing something wrong, the best thing to do is to try to correct it. It's like if your kid is doing crack behind a dumpster, you don't say, I support my kid no matter what. You can do whatever you want. No, you say, hey, dipshit, get over here. Sit down. We're going to have a talking to. You're going to rehab. We're going to cure you of your addiction. And we're going to make sure that we do right by you and try to clean up your life a little bit here. So, it's a weird question, too, because in my opinion, like, that is the way you support your country. You support your country by calling it out when it's wrong. But the way that this is framed, it looks like what they're saying is, like, would you, when they do shitty things, or would you say, like, the shitty things are okay because it's my country? At least that's how I interpret it. Okay, next. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I kind of agree with that. I mean, there are things I love about America. I mean, I love secularism, and that's part of our Constitution. I love free speech. I love a free press. But there are parts I hate about America. The rampant militarism and imperialism, the tremendous amounts of corruption. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag. I love my country, but it is a little silly if you're born on a random patch of dirt. So obviously what people do is they try to, like, find reasons why their country is great and all the others are inferior. That I don't agree with. I don't agree with this idea of like American exceptionalism as in American supremacy. Like, we're better than you because we're American, man. That's like a really silly tribalistic idea. So, no one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. No, I mean, it's funny because when you talk about, like, collectivism, that's the most collectivist idea ever. Like, let's talk about people and break them up into, like, a race. What's the white race like versus the black race versus the yellow race? That's what they call Asian people. But this is always from the same people who rail against the left for talking in, like, a collectivist way. So it's like they hate collectivism, except when they love it when it serves their own purposes. No, I think there's a lot of shitty people who are white, black, and everything else. And I think there's a bunch of good people who are white, black, and everything else. So no, I wouldn't say in general our race has many superior qualities. That's like the definition of racism. So let's answer it. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly disagree. Okay. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I disagree with that. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is Al-Qaeda. That's what the U.S. government's official position is. We hate Assad in Syria, so we're like, jihadists. You guys want some money and some weapons? We'll help you out if you're down. You down for it? Mujahideen with Ronald Reagan, same thing. We hate the Soviet Union so much that we are going to arm the Mujahideen, which later became the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. So that's a terrible idea, and nobody should believe it. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. No, I disagree with that. So if you're talking about like a genocide going on somewhere, in that situation, even though I'm a non-interventionist and I only think we should use the U.S. military for defensive reasons, I get like the UN getting involved and doing the right thing and everybody attacking that issue together and solving it and stopping it together. But unilateral military action, fuck no. The U.S. military, just like every other military on the planet, should abide by international law. And we're in a whole heap of shit because they don't abide by international law. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Okay, I'm super biased on this because that's me. I'm supposed to be like news and politics, but also make you laugh and make dick jokes and make fart jokes and just be overall entertaining because I'm obnoxious. So even though I'm massively biased, look at how fucking fair I am. God damn, I'm good. So even though I'm biased, I actually agree that there is a worrying fusion of information and entertainment because that can be exploited. And you know who else does a fusion of information and entertainment? Like SNL. And they do a shitty job. And there's a lot of fusing of information and entertainment where it's not done well and it's done more for purely propaganda reasons. So I would say, in general, the fusion of information and entertainment has been more negative than positive. Obviously, I think I'm an exception to the rule, where my fusion of information and entertainment is just lovely. But no, in general, I think that's a bad thing. So yeah, I agree. There has been a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. It's also why you see, like, you know, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West stories on CNN when they're supposed to be talking about the slaughter in Yemen or starvation in Mali or something like that. Okay, next page here. Again, you guys could take this politicalcompass.org test. Politicalcompass.org. Just go there and then you'll see the test when you go there. Okay, next. Now we're talking about the economy. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I largely agree with that. I think that there's obviously still is racism that exists, and I think the statistics show that, and I think that unfortunately many people are blind to the fact that there is still a good amount of racism, but overall I do think the dividing lines are more rich versus poor than white versus black or any minority group versus white, particularly in the U.S. So I would say I agree. People are more divided by class than by nationality. Okay. Well, they're talking nationality, so that is a little different because they're not just saying race, but I still think it's true that class is the stronger dividing line. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. No, employment is more important than inflation. Inflation is like a naturally occurring thing in any economy. So, I mean, I guess it shouldn't get out of control and you shouldn't have hyperinflation. That goes without saying. But usually that's tied to not just economic things, but general instability things. Like if there's a war going on or a famine or something, you see hyperinflation in really, really politically gross situations. So I would lean more towards controlling unemployment than inflation. So let's go ahead and put controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Disagree. Because corporations... Ooh, what did I do there? Because corporations cannot be trusted to... wait, I lost my place. I looked away for a second. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation, of course. Of course. Strongly agree with that. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamentally good idea. I disagree with that. That's Marxism. That's communism. It's one of those things where, like, it sounds good in theory. Like, oh yeah, you just take from each person according to their ability, and then you give them according to their need. But I break from some people on the left in that I still believe in having elements of capitalism in an economy. So I think some things should be in the hands of private business and the free marketplace. I think competition is a good way to make things better. I mean, you could just see that in certain products that come out over time, and always the great example of that is cars. Look at the cars that came out of the Soviet Union versus the cars that came out of the U.S. There's no comparison because the competition in the U.S. yielded the best result. Video games and shit like that. So there's some things that should be capitalist in the free market. And I think that the idea of trying to have competition and a meritocracy is a good idea in many respects. It's just that sometimes that gets run amok, and you can't have that be the case for healthcare, for example. You know, you can't have that be the case for education, I don't think. So there are a bunch of areas where the profit motive makes no sense and competition makes no sense, but then there are areas where it does make sense. So to structure an entire economy or an entire society with that idea in mind, from each according to his ability to each according to his need, that's not a good idea. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. I agree with that. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I disagree with that. I feel like there should be a more equal distribution of the land and in property in general, and I feel like income inequality should be massively, massively reduced because it's at an epidemic level. I mean, the richest 8 people in the world now have more than the bottom 3.6 billion combined, so 8 people, more than half the world. So don't get me wrong, I'm pro redistribution of wealth. But yeah, in general, the idea that land shouldn't be bought and sold, no, I think it should. There's no problem with private property. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I strongly agree with that. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Strongly agree with that. That's how you look out for the people in your own country. And that's how you do your job of representing the people in the United States of America, as opposed to representing the CEOs and the billionaires and the corporate interests who make massive amounts of profit while they exploit damn near slave labor in Bangladesh. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree with that, but here's the reality on that one. A corporation, by its nature, is going to do that. So the real thing that should happen is the government needs to be there to have rules and regulations and have laws and make sure that the corporations stay within those parameters. There needs to be refs in this game of our economy. So you're not going to change that. You're not going to have magically overnight like all the corporations suddenly become socially responsible. But that's why government exists, to make them follow certain rules. The rich are too highly taxed. Blow me. Strongly disagree. I just told you some facts about worldwide inequality. Richest 8 people have more than 3.6 billion people. In the U.S., 50% of people make $30,000 a year or less. So basically half the country is in poverty. Now, people on the right like to say, yeah, but the rich pay a gigantic burden of the tax money. Yeah, and they make an even bigger percentage of the money. So when you talk about how much they're taxed, that's massively misleading because that doesn't include how much they make, and they make way, way more. So they're definitely not taxed highly enough. Those with the ability to pay should have the right to higher standards of medical care. Okay, I disagree with that. So I disagree with that because I think everybody should have access to the highest standard of medical care. I wouldn't ban private medicine and stuff like that, but I would have a universal single-payer Medicare for all healthcare system so that everybody gets high-quality healthcare. If you want to get supplemental, something on top of it, you want to get private something, that's fine. I'm not going to ban that from existing. But everybody should get access to the highest quality care. Healthcare should be a right. And this is where conservatives say, yeah, but then when you do that, you're going to fuck up the system and there's going to be waiting lines and stuff. Well, number one, 45,000 people die every year in the U.S. because they don't have access to basic care. How many people die in Canada, Britain, Norway, France, Australia? 0. 0, 0, 0. So we have people that die here because they don't have access to basic care. But your argument against universal care is going to be that you might die because you're going to wait on a line. But we're already dying, and we're already dying. 45,000 people are dying, and 0 died in the other countries because they don't have access to basic care. So the only issue is that with some elective procedures, so not like really, really necessary procedures, with some elective procedures there are waiting lines because they structure things by need, so whoever needs the care gets it immediately. But if you want to do something that's more cosmetic, then yeah, you have to wait, and that's fine. And by the way, there have been countless studies into this, and every single time the universal healthcare systems from around the world rank better than the United States of America. So it's not a question, it's not a matter of opinion, it's not a matter of conjecture. Their systems are superior. So anybody who tries to, people are either misled, they're ignorant, they bought the propaganda, they're stupid, but they don't know what they're talking about if they say they prefer U.S. care to other modern nations. The only people who should prefer it are the richest 1%, who might get the highest quality care because they can pay an arm and a leg for it. So if you're a fucking Saudi prince who needs some kind of really expensive surgery, sure, they come to America. But while that's happening, our poor people are dying because they don't have access to basic care. So our system is abysmal, and it is literally one of the worst, if not the worst, in the modern world. Okay, next. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yeah, of course. Agree. You can't. That's not a free speech issue. It's a consumer protection issue. You can't say this pill that you made, if you're a pharmaceutical company, cures cancer, and then people take it, and it does nothing. So, of course. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yes, of course. Agree with that. Because once a monopoly takes over, then there is no more competition and there is no more free market. The freer the market, the freer the people. Disagree with that. You have to have regulations. You have to have regulations in order to really have freedom. Okay, next page. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree with that. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree with that. Do I agree with that or strongly agree with that? So just being a skeptic and being an intellectual, you should just answer yes to that, because you should question everything. You shouldn't just accept anything on faith. But is there such a thing as genuine authority? Yes. The example Noam Chomsky always gives is, if I'm walking with my granddaughter and she runs into the street and I grab her arm and pull her back, that's authority that is totally legitimate. And should the daughter question that authority and like rip her arm away and run into the street? No. That's authority where you should listen. And it's not just that. Like, if you murdered somebody and then you're hearing your sentence at a trial and you get found guilty, that is justice being served. And if you're questioning that authority of the government, well, then you just want anarchy and you want people to be able to get away with murder. So I'm talking myself into just agreeing with all authority should be questioned, as opposed to strongly agreeing. Let's go with that one. I love it when I convince myself of something in real time. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I disagree with that. What was it that MLK said or Gandhi said? An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. So no, if somebody rapes somebody, their punishment should not be getting raped. I think that's fucking really barbaric. So if like Osama bin Laden or any jihadist kills a U.S. citizen, the answer is not to go to the Middle East and kill a random, civilian. Like, if they kill a civilian here, you don't kill one of their civilians. Killing civilians is always wrong. So no, I disagree with an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Okay, I actually kind of agree with that, and this one may surprise my audience, but I'm in the crowd of, we should have like a social democratic system, so kind of like the Scandinavian countries, a mix of capitalism and socialism, a healthier mix. In the U.S., we're way too much on the capitalist side and the corporatist side, and not nearly enough on the socialist side where we spend on the people with education and healthcare and things like that. But I really don't think it's any of the government's business to be involved in the arts. I actually think for the arts, the free marketplace is a better, area where they can pick winners and losers. If you make shitty art that nobody likes, I'm not in favor of the government giving you a grant, especially not while we have a situation in Flint where there's no clean water, and we have hundreds of thousands of people who are homeless, and we have all these problems. That's just not something I would spend government resources on. Now, some people would take this and paint me as like anti-art. I like how you use the word paint. Paint me as anti-art. But no, I'm in favor of art, and I love it. But this is just one of those areas where I don't think the taxpayer shouldn't be subsidizing it. Like, if I'm paying for you to do sculpting or some shit, or you to do acting, well, I don't agree with that. That's not something I want to prioritize my money to go for. I want to prioritize my money to go for schools and bridges and police and healthcare and all that stuff. I don't want to prioritize it for something like that. That's really low on my list of things I say we should collectively fund. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Nah, I kind of disagree with that. You should have to go to school when you're from a certain age to a certain age. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. What? What does that even mean? All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. I don't know what that means. If they're talking about just like different races, like, oh, stick to your kind, that's like some segregationist shit. I disagree with that. What the fuck are they saying? Strongly disagree. That's a strange thing. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I disagree with that. Don't hit your kids. There's other ways. I wouldn't hit them. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I kind of agree. I mean, if I was a parent, I might feel differently. But I'm not a parent, and yeah, there's some things where the individualism, even of a child, and it depends how old we're talking here, but Yeah, you don't need complete and utter transparency with everything you do where your parents know everything. I mean, that's a little crazy. That's a little, like, police state-ish, even though it's your parents. Like, they should know a lot, but they shouldn't know everything. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. Come on now. I file that under freedom, bitch. Put in your body whatever you want to put in your body as long as you're not hurting anybody else. And will some people become addicted to some drugs? Not marijuana, of course, but are there some drugs that are addictive that I would legalize? Yes. And if people get addicted, I would have a system set up where they can go to some sort of a rehab. So, Dr. Carl Hart said it, man. Like 80% of drug users are moderate users, which means like 20% get addicted. So, okay, I feel bad for those people, but I'm not going to ban the substances. That's like saying with alcohol. Like 20% of people who drink alcohol are alcoholics. Okay, that doesn't mean we should ban it. It means we should get those people help. So, yes, I side strongly with freedom on that one. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I disagree. It should be a mix of that. It should be a mix of practical stuff like, okay, how do you, track your finances and make sure you don't overspend, and how do you do all these things you have to do in real life. It should be a mix of that, but also it should be, deeper philosophical questions and, societal questions and things that are more deep and profound. So it should be a mix of practical stuff and more deep stuff. The big questions, hey, why are we here? How should we craft society? Yada, yada. So it should be a mix of both. Next, people with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Wrong. Freedom. What are they trying to do? Trying to make us like Nazi Germany? You got to stop the undesirables from reproducing. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Wrong. Disagree with that. I mean, obviously, for the basics, they should accept the discipline. Don't fucking hurt people. Don't assault people. Don't rape people. Don't murder people. Be a good person. But outside of that, yeah, individualism, freedom. If you disagree with your parents on stuff and you want to lead a different life and they're by the book and they want you to become an accountant but you want to be a rock star or whatever, it's your prerogative, man. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. Yeah, it's not true. So, for example, Christian fundamentalists are more savage than secular liberals. Hindu fundamentalists, more savage than secular liberals. Muslim fundamentalists, more savage than secular liberals. Mississippi conservatives, more savage than California liberals. I mean, this is one of those things where I feel like liberals would be tempted to say, like, oh, of course I agree. Everything is always equal all the time. Except that's not true. Except the Nazis were savage people. And, there are, but not, Buddhists are not savage people. So there was massive difference in their ideologies and how they lived as a result of it. And it's important to make those distinctions. It's just not, it's too gross and broad to just, do a false equivalence and say it's always equal. No, it's not equal. Is it equal? Is George W. Bush equal to FDR? No, fuck no. Fuck no. So I think it's a little more nuanced than I'm giving it credit for, because even among shitty groups of it, like if somebody is, like, there could be somebody who has a toxic ideology who's like part of a shitty cult, but never actually does bad things. You see what I'm saying? Like, you could be in Scientology. You could be a Scientologist, but you're a normal, good person. But, like, you happen to be a part of this group, which is a savage group. So do you count as a savage? I don't know. That's where it gets a little difficult. It gets a little sketchy. It gets a little more nuanced. But overall, so it says there are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. We're going to disagree. We're going to go disagree. Because it's just true that Nazis are more savage than non-Nazis. Religious fundamentalists are more savage than secular liberals. That's not to say all religious people are bad. Of course not. but it is true that the fundamentalists are worse than... So it's nuanced, but we're going to go with disagree. Okay, next. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. They're able to work and they refuse the opportunity. So they're choosing to not be productive in the workplace. Well, look, maybe this is my bleeding heart liberal side coming out, but I feel like every single person in a civilized society should have a bare minimum level of support and should have a bare minimum safety net and line where they can't go below. There's a floor. I don't want that floor to be a mansion. I don't want that floor to be opulent in any way, shape, or form. But I do think civilized people are judged by how we treat the people among us with the least. And even if you're somebody who has no desire and you're massively lazy and you actively choose, like, I don't want to work, I don't think that means you should be living under a bridge and, perhaps dying from the cold at night because society decided you don't even deserve to have a roof over your head. I like the idea of having a society that says, even if you're confused and you're lost and you don't know what to do with your life and you don't want to take the job and you want to fucking sit there and be depressed for a few months, I like the idea of a society that says, you know what? Okay. Here's a tiny-ass one-bedroom apartment with a roof over your head, with a bed, bare bones, no amenities or anything like that, but you have a place where you can not die, where we can take care of you, where it's not going above and beyond, but there is a bare minimum there. So, having said all that, those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. I disagree. They should expect enough to get by on the bare minimum. I'm not going to let you die in the street. I'm not going to let you live in opulence, but there's a middle ground there. Okay, next. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. That's weird. I don't know. That's not really a political question. It's more of a psychological question. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Yeah, me personally, I kind of agree with that, but that's just me. I understand people, like some people can remedy a situation more by sitting down and reflecting on it and going through it in their mind and then coming to some sort of a conclusion. I'm the kind of person where if something's bothering me, it is better if I just move on to whatever the next thing is that I'm going to do and forget about whatever it is that's bothering me. Okay, next, first-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. That's just factually wrong. Of course they can. It's happened many times. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. What? No. That doesn't even make sense. No broadcasting institution, however independent, no broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I disagree with that. There can be some. There's a place for, NPR-style stuff, BBC-style stuff. So, no. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Strongly agree. That's just a fact. That's not even a matter of opinion. Look at what the NSA is doing. Look at the fact that Guantanamo Bay is still open. Where's habeas corpus? Where's due process? Your liberal former President Obama assassinated a 16-year-old American citizen with a drone without any trial. It's just a fact that your civil liberties are being curbed in the name of counterterrorism. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Strongly disagree. You need that argument and that disagreement, and you need not just more than one party, not just two parties. I like way more parties than that. Okay, next. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree. That's like with the NSA scandal, what did we learn? We learned that you had people in the NSA spying on their love interests. It was so common, they used a code word for it. They called it love int, short for love intelligence. And they would just spy on their exes. And countless examples of this stuff, man. They were spying on fucking everybody and their grandma. They were spying on Angela Merkel's cell phone. They were spying on Obama, candidate Obama, when he was running early on. The NSA just, they're totally unhinged, and they do whatever they want because they have the ability to do whatever they want, and it's in human nature. When they have the ability, they're going to do it. So, no, it's not just terrorists. If you really think the NSA is only looking at terrorists, you're just wrong, and you haven't read all the information on this. You haven't read the Snowden leaks. I mean, they literally were spying on fucking, like, Xbox players or something because they thought, well, maybe the Taliban is using this to communicate. Of course, they weren't. So people just have their shit spied on. It's everywhere. They spy on everything. Okay, next. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Okay, this one I disagree begrudgingly because in theory, I say yes. In theory, like Dylan Roof just got the death penalty. Fuck him. We know he did it. He knows he did it. He says he did it. All the evidence is there. It's clear as day. And he's like, yeah, come on, I did it. Fuck him. I'm fine with that guy dying. But, as I always say, I can't have a death penalty system because we get the wrong people all the time. That's human nature, too. You're going to fuck up every now and then. So if you have a system where the number's 4% of the time, according to a recent study, if 4% of the people on death row are innocent, but they're going to be fucking put to death, well, that means that the death penalty system is committing murder. And by its own logic, that means you have to give the death penalty to the death penalty system. So there's a paradox, there's a conundrum of the death penalty that you can't escape, which is sometimes you're going to get the wrong people, which means the state, the people, the taxpayers just committed murder. So what should we do? Should we put all of us to death too? So no, you just avoid any accidents, killing any of the wrong people. You avoid that completely by not having it, and you replace the death penalty with life in prison without the possibility of parole, which, by the way, some might argue that's actually an even bigger punishment than the death penalty, because the death penalty is like, they're getting out of Dodge. There's less pain or suffering if you're just put to death and you're put out of your misery. If you got to rot in a cell for 47 years and think about what you did and have no hope, well, maybe that's actually an even crueler punishment. So that's what some people argue. I'm not sure I buy that, but it's out there on the table. Okay, next. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. What the fuck are you talking about? Strongly disagree. That's authoritarianism. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Okay, I disagree with that, but I personally hate that kind of art. I despise that kind of art. I think it's goofy. I think it's silly. I don't think there's anything actually deep there. I think people read into it and make shit up. So I'm not with like the uber left on this one. But having said all that, I still recognize that it technically counts as art. So yeah, it's art. But that's all I'm going to say about it. It's art I despise, but it's art. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I disagree with that. It depends. It depends. Sometimes you should do punishment. Sometimes you should do rehabilitation. Sometimes you should do a mix of those things. In the U.S., we lean too heavily on the side of punishment. I would say that in some other countries, some other modern countries in Scandinavia, they might lean too heavily on the side of rehabilitation, and they might be too nice. Like Anders Breivik, for example, the terrorist, murderous asshole who massacred children. He was complaining because he only had like an outdated video game system, like a PS2 or some shit. And he has like a 2 or 3 room fucking cell, and he gets to go for walks and shit. So, no, like, they lean too heavily on the side of rehabilitation, but we lean too heavily on the side of punishment. I think there's like a middle ground there, where you got to go on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes the person needs just rehabilitation. Sometimes they need punishment. Sometimes they need a mix of rehabilitation and punishment. Next, it's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I agree with that. There are some people who are beyond rehabilitation. I think that's just a fact of reality. When you have somebody like Dylan Roof who said, yeah, I did it, and no, I don't shed a goddamn tear for them. If anything, I just shed a tear for myself, and I shed a tear for these poor white kids who are going to have to, grow up around these races that are inferior. He said, I don't feel bad at all. That's what he said. So is there any hope for rehabilitation for that guy? If you think that, I think you're a dunce. I think you're a rube. I think you've been had. You've been took. I think you've fallen for something that's just so obviously not the case. So yeah, some people I think are beyond rehabilitation. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I think the manufacturer is the most important of all those listed there, but that's just an opinion. I'm just going to put disagree because, I mean, that is one where it's like, what am I doing other than just telling you my take on it? Like, I'm trying to be as objective as I can here. Obviously, a lot of this is just my opinion, but I'm trying to base it on objective facts, and this one is just... I personally think the manufacturer is the most important of all those, but how many people have been, inspired by an artist or by a writer? How many business deals have lifted people out of poverty if it's a good businessman? So who's to say, really? Manufacturer is the more like, let's get down to it. Let's create what needs to be created for the people. And sure, they're doing it for profit, but there's a good in it. So manufacturer is more like, getting your hands dirty and calloused and doing what you got to do, which is why I lean towards thinking manufacturer is the most important. But again, that's just my opinion. Some of the other things are important too. I mean, a writer and an artist really kind of get at what it means to be human. Like, they can write about the human condition and can, really touch you in a way that makes you feel like, wow, that was important. I can't believe I read that. It could lift people out of depression even. So I don't know. So I'm just going to go with disagree there. All right, next. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Bitch, strongly disagree. A woman can be whatever she wants to be. So if the majority of women, let's say, want to do that, hey, I just want to be a homemaker, by all means, go right ahead. I'm not going to judge you in a negative way. That's your prerogative. You have freedom to do that. You have the right to do that, and that doesn't make you a less person or anything. So I support you 100%, and that's one of the hardest jobs in the world is to actually be a homemaker. But no, to say their first duty is to be homemakers, no, that's again, some asshole's take on it. There are women who just want to, be in the workforce and want to build a career, or they have a hobby that they really care about, and that's what they spend all their time on, or whatever. There's a million things. A woman can be whatever she wants to be, just like a man can be whatever he wants to be. Again, file that one under freedom. Next, multinational companies, how they go with multinational, are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. What a weird... Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I don't know what that means. Does that mean like Monsanto is in other countries doing some fucked up shit that I don't know about? That's probably true. I mean, I've read enough about Monsanto to know that they ain't in it for helping humanity. So, multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I'm going to go with agree just because that's probably the case. But I really don't know because I don't know exactly what they're referring to. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Strongly disagree. That's an important aspect of stupidity, is making peace with the establishment. Well, they need to make peace with us, bitch. That's what a democracy is supposed to be about. They need to create a system that works for the people. It's not that the people should fit into some arbitrary standard set up by the establishment who are doing the biddings of the billionaires and the multinational corporations. So what a silly thing to say. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Piss off. All right, next. Okay, astrology accurately explains many things. That's just factually wrong. Strongly disagree. Wrong. You're wrong. My favorite part of that, actually it's not my favorite part, but I'm talking about a Twitter clip I sent out with like the compilation of Trump saying wrong in the primary and in the general. There's one line that he slips in there other than wrong. So it's almost all wrong. You're wrong. But at one point, he puts his arms up and he goes, "It's lies." Hillary says something that's true. I think she was talking about the Iraq War, and she's like, "Actually, you did support it." And there's the thing on Howard Stern, a recording of you saying you support it. And he puts his hands up and he shrugs. He goes, "It's lies." He's so silly. Okay, anyway. Astrology explains many things. Wrong. Strongly disagree. That's just not true. It's pseudoscience, also known as not science. You cannot be moral without being religious. Blow me. Strongly disagree. In fact, while the majority of religious people are good people, I do believe that. I think they're wrong about what they believe. I think they're factually wrong about, the nature of the universe and if we have a wizard in space who's looking over us. But they're mostly good people. But it's also a fact that if you look at polling in the U.S. and you ask atheists versus Christians what their beliefs are, the beliefs of atheists coincide more with the beliefs of Jesus Christ than the beliefs of Christians coincide with Jesus Christ. So atheists more mirror the so-called Messiah of Christianity than Christians do, which is hilarious. So if anything, it's the exact opposite of what this says. But what a silly thing. You cannot be moral without being religious, please. Next. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Strongly disagree. It's not enough. Charity is not enough. Charity is... Everybody says, well, you can get rid of the social safety net and then, charity will take care of the poor because it's voluntary, so it's, better. Except it's nowhere near enough. If you just leave it up to charity, the poverty rate spikes massively, and we know this because we have the statistics from before we had Social Security and the safety net and Medicare, and we have the statistics from after. And it just so happens that Social Security massively cut the poverty rate among elderly people. So that's just wrong. Wrong. Some people are naturally unlucky. I mean, I guess luck exists, right? Luck is, hey, some people get good breaks, some people get bad breaks. Yeah, of course that exists. Okay, let's go with agree. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Strongly disagree, bitch. I think this might be it. This might be the end of the test. Wrong. Wrong. No. Oh, this is the last page, though. So actually, this test is shorter than the I side with test, which is interesting because I was under the misimpression that this test was longer. But I guess this segment is going to be a lot shorter than I thought it would be. Sorry that you guys don't get 7 hours straight of me talking, which I know you love so much. Wrong. That's what you're thinking. Okay. Finally, a look at sex. Okay. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. How ridiculous is that? A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. What the fuck are we talking about here? Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Where's the question, motherfucker? Hashtag freedom all up in your face. Like the cum shot that you're probably watching on porn right now on the other tab that you have open. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree, motherfucker. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. There are many homosexual people. In quotes, homosexual. Gay people. Okay. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I disagree with that. I mean, I'm all for it. I guess sometimes it gets a little weird when you have, Miley Cyrus shaking her pancake ass on stage at MTV, and I get a little uncomfortable with it, but I'm generally in favor of sexuality. All right, let's see where I stand here. Dicks and balls in your face. Dicks and balls in your face. Where is my thing? Oh, look at that. Isn't that lovely? So, oftentimes on the show, I say I'm a left libertarian. Now you know why I say I'm a left libertarian, because that's where I fall on the spectrum. So hold on, let's see where do I mesh again with these people? That's the bottom. Let's go back to the top. So I'm somewhere in the realm of Gandhi, although Gandhi appears to be slightly more left on economic policy, and slightly more in the authoritarian direction, even though he's still libertarian. So down is libertarian, as you can see. This is libertarian right here. So the further down you go, that's libertarian on social issues. The further up you go, that's authoritarian on social issues. And then left, this is left economically, and this is right economically. So I don't have other maps here, but they show some. Okay, so this is Hitler. They have Hitler all the way up here, massively, massively authoritarian and somewhat right-leaning economically. They have Margaret Thatcher, who's a little less authoritarian than Hitler, but further right economically, which means she's more in favor of free market capitalism without regulations. I don't know which Friedman they're talking about, probably Milton Friedman here, but he would be, yes, so all the way to the right, so this means he's totally in favor of like an Ayn Rand-style anarcho-capitalist system with very little regulations and almost a totally capitalist marketplace. That's why he's all the way to the right, and he's slightly libertarian-leaning on social issues. As opposed to authoritarian, which is like, okay, so he leans more towards letting you do whatever you want to do in your private time and shit. Stalin, that's authoritarian leftism. So that's basically state control of the economy completely. So very little free marketplace, very little capitalism, and also massively authoritarian, which means, you know, he wants to control your private life and control every aspect of that, as opposed to live and let live, kind of let you do whatever you want, which is libertarian again, which is down here. So my guess is, where I am on this spectrum, is in the realm of social democracy. So social democracy would be here. Communism is up here. Authoritarian leftism. Fascism is up here. Authoritarian rightism. And then libertarian rightism is like Ron Paul. So that'd be over here. So that means let you do whatever you want on social issues and totally in favor of capitalism, very little regulation of the marketplace, yada yada. And then like Bernie Sanders is over here around this area. So my guess is people who would take this test in my audience, all you guys listening, my guess is that over 80% of you, and I think I'm being conservative in using that number, but over 80% of you would fall somewhere in the libertarian left area. So well, you might be more left economically than me, so you might be over here, you know, and you might not be as libertarian as me, or you might be more libertarian than me and not as left as me economically. But, as you can see, solid left libertarian here. I think that's right in the realm of social democracy. I'd be right around, you know, somebody like Bernie Sanders. They actually have these things where I don't know if the people took them. I don't know if, like, Obama and Hillary Clinton and Romney took them, or somebody just kind of placed them on the spectrum either way. But, so that's where I fall. So, anyway, it would actually be pretty cool. You guys should take this test and tweet it at me where you fall, because I'm interested. I'm interested in where you guys fall. I know I took this once before and just shared the results, so I didn't do a video on it and walk everybody through it. But I took this once before and shared the results, and you guys tweeted at me where you fell on it. But I'm curious now, too. So everybody take it if you have the time, and then send me the results. And again, I would venture to say over 80% of you, about at least 80% of you, are libertarian left somewhere in this area, somewhere in the green. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're in the green anywhere, you're pretty much my ally, you know? So let's do it. Let's do it. So I had fun doing this. Hope you guys had fun listening. Today is the first day of President Trump. President Trump has only been sworn in for, you know, since 12 o'clock here, and it's 3:15 now. So this is the very first segment I'm doing and video I'm releasing on YouTube in the President Trump era. And now you guys get a good idea, a very specific idea, of where I fall on what I think is the best political spectrum here. This box one, this square one, this quadrant one, as opposed to just the left-right spectrum. So anywho, all right, guys, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you back on the regular show on Monday. Peace.